whole country, perhaps what kind of help do you expect to get? But everywhere, this is really one of the repercussions, one of the effects of the war. We've been reading about this for a while now, that the price of fertilizer, just like fuel and other things, they will go up. And this is what we're experiencing right now.
Well, if you look at the cost of fertilizer, if it's costing 2,000 plus, and at some point a farmer needs to get at least maybe 10 bags or so, maybe you need to get maybe 25 bags if you are farming a large hectare of land. And that's going to cost you a whole lot of money. This means at the end of time your returns will be smaller, because at the end of time you're going to use all for fertilizer.
This is precisely the situation we are in. And everybody must adapt to the reality, if you know what I mean. Of course, we will ask of our government what it can do. Because anywhere in the world, you will have your strategy, your plan. So this is the reality. How can we help mitigate, as it were, the worst effects? How can we do stuff like that for the farmers?
It's a global problem. Really.
It's a global problem. So everybody must adapt, be it the farmer, be it the government, be it anybody involved in agriculture. How do I take on board this reality, and then, you know, to make the best out of it? This is really what we have to face now.
Yeah, I think the reason why there is so much noise about it is, I remember some of the farmers even complained about it, that they were not, you know, warned in advance, or maybe they were not engaged, you know, before the announcing of the new prices. You know, they were called to a meeting, and at the end of the meeting, just before they dispersed, they were told that this is going to be the new price. So, you know, they didn't really welcome it, you know, and they felt that, you know, they should have been engaged, you know, extensively on this, so they prepared themselves in advance.
So you see,
yeah,
that's
I think the information came quite late.
That's the key. So there must be constant communication, and certain decisions I take, it must be, we must have this ownership. Everybody must be involved. We look at the facts rationally and try to come to a conclusion that we can reasonably agree with. So when you have that consensus, then it's easier to implement.
True.
Otherwise, you have one faction saying one thing, another faction saying something else. So the communication and regular consultations is really so important.
I think communication really is a problem we have here. Because for some of these farmers, I mean, they don't clearing their land, so to them it was like, I'm just going to go there, get my fertilizer and start work. Unfortunately, you get to the place and you're told this is the new price, and you can't afford it for most of them. So.
Well, I don't know why, for some reason, I'm pressing myself not to bring this topic, but I have to bring it, because I just saw something very important. Reliance risks losing 1.8 million amid ban of tuk-tuk operation, the tricycle. Yes, I mean, recently we've seen the police are impounding a whole lot of tricycles. If you go around Bakote police station, the Kotu police station, you'll see a lot of them packed there in different other areas. But I never knew. I mean, Reliance was involved in this at some point, because they were financing some of these Gambian youths to acquire this. So they are complaining it will bring them a lot of losses.
That's it. We discussed this, didn't we? And we looked at it and said, why? And we heard about stuff like safety, traffic, and that sort of thing. We said, granted. Statistically, are we getting more accidents from these? So I really do not know what the facts are. We are just being told a narrative, but I do not know what the facts are. There's one part. Show me the statistics to show that there's so many accidents because of these people. I want to see that.
Actually,
secondly, just give me, I've heard about, they were talking about foreigners dominating this or dominating that. I'm quite suspicious of that sort of language. You know how many Gambians live outside, and they're gonna want to have jobs and that sort of thing. You know what I mean? So I'm really very careful with this language, and we know in ECOWAS what we want to do.
Yeah, true.
We know in the EU what we want to do. So if I allow somebody to come in here legally, yes, and then you can have a driving license. You know, you go and go through the right procedure, and I give you a driving license. I'm really not sure, especially if you're from Sierra Leone or Nigeria.
Yeah.
I'm really not sure, and you know what you need to do. Let's have our standards.
Yeah.
If you do not fulfill, then you are not going to be given a license to drive a commercial taxi. But if you can fulfill the conditions, I really do not know why I shouldn't let you drive a commercial vehicle. I have to be honest with you. This is how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, so from what I've heard from the police, it's like, you know, it's the law that foreigners cannot drive commercial taxis or vehicles, if you like.
But how have they begun to drive in the first place?
In the first place, exactly.
So if it is the law, it's there.
Yeah.
What's been going on?
Exactly.
At some point, maybe that law have not been put into effect.
Yeah,
It's the usual story, isn't it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we really would invite the police. They can come over. So we have this conversation.
And
so,
clarify.
You know,
I do not agree
so we all
when
have an
it comes
understanding
to
of what is really happening.
the ideas of foreigners not driving.
I'm very suspicious of that sort of
You made
language.
it very clear here.
Yes.
But maybe we need to change some of these
we have a
laws,
lot of
really.
Gambians. I mean, we have Gambians in Nigeria who are driving, and if you know Lagos traffic, how they are, I mean, we have them there, and they are given license to drive. But I think anyway, the police can be in a better position to clarify these things. So we might invite Njai or Jamanka to come here and clarify.
Yeah. I mean, exactly what I said. I think what we would do now is to extend that invitation to the police to come over. So we have this conversation. So, I mean, at least everyone has an understanding of what is really happening and the reasons why. So I think it is important.
We'll move to another headline. Health officials raises alarm over use of Caesar among school children. You know, at some point I engaged few people, and I ask. I mean, it smells good. I mean, the way it's.
But dangerous.
Well, I smell the smell of the Caesar smells good. Is that the way it does to your health too?
I think we're celebrating World Tobacco Day.
I have no idea.
Yeah, anyway.
Mr. Mboj, I have no idea. I've never smoked Caesar before, but
Don't try it.
Well, passive smoking.
Don't try it.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Mboj.
Well, I don't know how they call it. Is it Caesar or Shisha?
Shisha.
Shisha. It's Shisha.
Fullerman.
Is that a Chinese name or an Indian name?
It's a Fullerman. But yes, Mr. Mboj, you go first.
We're living in the urban areas. We're influenced by all sorts of things. These things will happen. I think it's never enough to say, no, don't touch it, you know, the moral argument, don't do this, don't touch it, don't do that. Yes, some people will listen to you, others wouldn't. And the mark of youth is you tend to experiment.
Yeah.
Look at cigarette tobacco smoke. Everybody by now knows that you shouldn't do it, but some people do.
True.
So what you do is maybe you try to protect innocent ones. That's what they're trying to do with this tobacco control laws, isn't it? You cannot do it in certain areas, you know, in an enclosed place. You know, imagine at a restaurant you have waitresses, waiters who are not smoking. They don't want that, so they tell you, no, you cannot do that in this environment. So all you can do is control. I don't like the idea of banning. We must police that border between liberty and safety. Yes? The government can come in. You have to ensure our communal safety. But give me space. Don't be too moralistic. You're not any more moral than I am. You see, I just want you to bring in laws to make it easier for us to interact. But don't come and tell me how to live my life. You know what I mean? There are limits. There's an irreducible minimum of rules and laws.
Mr. Mboj,
but don't
you
tell
have
me too
to
much.
No one is going to tell you how to live your life.
No.
As far as the way you are living your life, it's not affecting others around you.
That was precisely what I said.
Exactly what he said.
You have to protect. Granted, you have to protect. But again, there's a space where allow me to make my own mistakes. That's how I will grow up as a human being. So I'm very suspicious of governments banning this, banning that. Give the information out there. That's all you can do. Give the information, and in schools they're educating these kids everywhere. But we all know some people will do what they're not supposed to do. This is the experience that we've seen. How do I protect others from your harm? Yet I recognize your liberty. This is the difficulty always in democracies. How do I balance liberty and safety?
Yeah, I think the reason why we're still having this conversation around, the banning of CSI and all of that is because our problem is enforcement. The laws are there. We have them. They are there. It's like with every other sector. I mean, every other issue that you talk about. I mean, we have laws in place to deal with these things, But enforcement is a problem. Now, if those laws are being, well enforced, I mean, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Because then, if one has to smoke, yes, you will still smoke, but then it will have to be in accordance with the law. Now, I think it's rather unfortunate. I mean, we keep talking about this year in, year out, come every World Tobacco Day, we celebrate it, we make all these, big statements, all these speeches around it. Yet, yes, it's true. You look at Gambia compared to other countries, I mean, we're faring quite well when it comes to, fighting against the use of tobacco and all that. That is what we're being told anyway. But then, like I said, enforcement is a problem.
That's it. And then with this, you think about what is the mechanism of enforcement? I live in the TDA area around Kololi, go to a restaurant a lot. So once they said that they've got this campaign, they're going to enforce it, so the police once or twice. They cannot be everywhere.
Yeah.
If you really rely on the police to enforce, it's not going to happen. Because you need your people to sort of also agree with you. You see, laws, if you don't have that general acceptance, it's extremely difficult. So if I were sort of to enforce this sort of thing, I'm not sure whether I will use the police. I'll probably use the wards.
Yeah.
Yes. I will somehow create a mechanism because it's easier, it's smaller. If each ward, you take care of your own patch, I'll give you the resources, there will be a more effective enforcement. Then if I just rely on this police, there's so much that they need to do. So with these things, they will visit a restaurant or so once or twice. It's never going to be consistent.
Yeah,
so it's the mechanism of enforcement,
and aside,
I think.
I mean, apart from the enforcement aspect of it, I think one way to go about this is also to engage the public, talk to the people. You remember, I mean, there was a time, I mean, we were having almost every week cases around FGM. But you don't hear those things anymore, even though I know the practice is still on, but it is not as prevalent as it used to be back in the days. And this is because, I mean, you go to certain places, they show you video documentaries of the impact that FGM is having on some of our sisters. I think it's important if they can engage members of the public, show them video documentaries of how dangerous it is using some of these substances. At least it will help create that enlightenment, sensitize the people, so at least they would understand. And then it will be up to you to make a choice between, like they say, smoking kills, between killing yourself, and not smoking. But I think they need to engage members of the public. That for me is the way to go.
The liberal attitude. Of course, awareness, information, sensitization, we call all of these things, but we all know that that's a very, very slow process. Yeah, here, I remember during the COVID-19, the information that was going out, yet imagine outside, we all know, not even imagine it, we lived it, a lot of people are still skeptical.
True.
So the idea of awareness, let's be careful with that and realize that this is a long haul. And the change will probably appear generationally. I would love to think that the older generation, how we thought about certain things, that would be slightly different from the younger generation. Yeah, we used to call it the generational gap. There are always these things. So with social attitudes, my suspicion is that you can only change them generationally in many ways. Sure. So that's a long haul. But what do I do in the short term? I must have a short-term plan, intermediate, and the long term. So here I think having regulation and enforcing it would help I think,
Yeah.
to mold us in a certain way. This is why government, institutions, infrastructure is so important, really. So without that, it's going to make it very, very difficult.
Exactly. And Mr. Mboj, I think they should also be looking at catching the young ones before they grow. Maybe trying
I think he mentioned that.
School.
Talking
go
about
to
schools.
schools, you know. That's where you can do certain things. If you go to the school, you sensitize them the dangers of smoking shisha. At the end of the time, many people, maybe 99.9% of them, will take heed. You understand? But now you can see youngsters at a very young age smoke. You know.
Yes. I
They
mean,
go to the garages. You find them there. All this garage.
Yeah.
Too many.
These are some of
really very young.
These are some of the problems of our age. I mean, go to the US, go to Europe. I mean, see what those kids do. It's just, I don't know. Is it the problems of success? Some people will always be attracted to the hedonistic. Anywhere you go, you're going to have that. People who will break rules or want to take these mind-altering substances. Human beings have always done that. That is one part. But as a society, how do I protect the innocent? For me, this is really the key. In the end, how do I protect somebody who doesn't want to be part of it?
Yeah.
Yes, this is what I mean by the balance between public safety and individual liberty. All democracies face this dilemma.
Yeah.
Yes, so this is how do we balance it. This is the key. But let us not be romantic about life. Some people will always do this, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
Thank you
hey,
very much.
smoking shisha
Yes.
is
It's
bad.
bad.
It's good
awful.
to, it's good to have you
Utterly
here.
Stop
awful.
smoking shisha.
Yes,
It's bad.
there was something written on a wall, and the guy said to a person who was smoking nearby, "This is a non-smoking zone."
Yes.
The guy said, "But I'm not smoking zone. I'm smoking cigarette."
Must be a fuller man.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mboj, for coming on the newspaper review. We appreciate this, and you know, good to have you here always. We'll take a short break. After the break, then we'll be back.
With so many things to do in a single day, it's important to have a network you can trust. When there's family and friends to connect with and business calls to make, you need a network that is reliable and fast. Talk longer, browse faster, go farther, and roam wider. When your network is solid, the world is your oyster. QCell, your trusted network in the Gambia.
Your favorite QCell service has gotten bigger. eFunkanta. Now you can loan bigger credit amounts to make life easier for you. Loan $75 and $100 and pay later. Yes, you heard me right. Get credit loan from $10 to $100 using eFunkanta by dialing *393#. Anytime you run out of credit, whether you want to buy Q-Power, browse the internet, make urgent calls, or send SMS. eFunkanta is the service for you. Dial *393# and choose the loan amount of your choice with no hassle. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunyabus, the pioneers of mobile loan service in the Gambia. We innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions apply.
Check out the all-new Tigo 8 at S-Pass Motors. Call 3522-222 or 353-2222 for more information.
Cherry. Your favorite QCell service has gotten bigger. eFunkanta. Now you can loan bigger credit amounts to make life easier for you. Loan $75 and $100 and pay later. Yes, you heard me right. Get credit loan from $10 to $100 using IFA Kanta by dialing *393#. Anytime you run out of credit, whether you want to buy Q-Power, browse the internet, make urgent calls, or send SMS. IFA Kanta is the service for you. Dial *393# and choose the loan amount of your choice with no hassle. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunyabus, the pioneers of mobile loan service in the Gambia. We innovate, others follow.
With so many things to do in a single day, it's important to have a network you can trust.
Welcome back from that break. And of course, you're watching QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Abalde. In case you missed all the things discussed here, you can go to our website on our social media platforms to watch some of the discussions. That was Mr. Mboj on the newspaper review, and now we'll look at social issues. As I mentioned before the beginning of the program, we'll be talking to personnel from the Gambia Immigration Department. They have something very important to share with the general public and also other discussions, because we'll be looking at alien cards and, of course, national identity cards. We have Mr. Diba, the Public Relations Officer of the Gambia Immigration Department, and Mr. Jallo. Gentlemen, welcome to this morning.
Welcome. Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you.
First of all, it's good to have you here, Mr. Diba. I won't even tell you to introduce yourself. You are now a household name in the Gambia. People know the face. Can you take us through what are you people doing at the moment?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would want to say a very good morning to our viewers home and abroad. And thank you very much to you and your team for hosting us this morning on this platform. If you ask me what we are doing right now at GID, we are doing a lot. We are doing a lot. We are doing a lot in terms of expansions infrastructurally. We are doing a lot in terms of capacity building, training and officers, our officers rather. You know, we are doing a lot in terms of, strengthening and enhancing our border control measures, alien registration, and a whole lot of other things that we are doing as part of, our overall, how do I say, reform agenda, reform initiative.
Okay, I mean, we'll just try to single out certain things and focus on that. That's the alien cards and the national identity card.
Very well.
We'd like to know how to acquire these documents if a person lives in this country, because a whole lot of noise has been made when it comes to alien cards and national identity cards of the Gambia. How do you acquire them?
First and foremost, I would want to start with the National Identification Card, that is the ID card. This is a document that is out for the Gambians, and it is a requirement as per the laws of this country that every adult citizen is required to have this identification card. So the requirements for people to have this thing, first and foremost, it is meant for Gambians and for Gambians only. So the other subsidiary requirements will include documentary proof, to prove that you are a citizen of this country, not just by saying that you are a Gambian or somebody witnessing that you are a Gambian, but it has to be, there must be some proofs. So these proofs may come in the form of a birth certificate. It will also include a passport or alcalos attestation or CFOS attestation. So in the case of citizens that acquire citizenship by other means, aside birth and other means, for example, those who acquire citizenship by naturalization or through registration, in other words, marrying to a Gambian, those people will have to show us a proof of naturalization, that is naturalization certificate or registration certificate. So precisely, these are some of the requirements that Gambians need to produce to be able to acquire this card. But I always like to add that mere presentation of all these documents that I have just lined up is not an automatic license for anybody to be issued a national ID card. Responding to the profiling questions adequately to substantiate your claims and to substantiate or to substantiate the documents that you have presented as evidence of your citizenship will also go a long way in helping the approving officers to accord you the status of a Gambian citizen.
But Balde, I would like Mr. Jallow to take us through this, some of these profiling questions that you would normally ask people. Like he said earlier, there's a lot of noise around it, and we even have people who've gone as far as accusing the GID of discriminating against certain people, or maybe even sending people away, unreasonably and all that. If you could take us through the process.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, viewers. Like the PRO rightly said, we want to seize this opportunity to thank you for hosting us today. The interview is somehow critical because first and foremost, what we need to look at is the documents that you presented, whether they are in order and actually whether they belong to the person who is sitting right before you. And then after doing that, we will try to ask the necessary questions to establish whether the person is a citizen or not in line with the law. And then there is one thing that people are confused about. That is the issue of referrals and rejection. If you come for interview, the first instance, if you do not satisfy the approving officer, you are referred to go and bring in more proof to support your claim. So many a times, people, when they are referred, either to call their parents or to bring more supporting documents, they are quoting us to say we have rejected them. Rejection is the last resort, and you cannot reject somebody without tangible proof to show that the person is not eligible to be issued with the national identity card. So in a nutshell, we do not have specific questions, but we try to establish whether actually the documents that you bring before us are truly yours and they are in order. And also we try to ask you related questions about your place of birth, your parents' origin, to establish whether you are a Gambian or not. Yeah.
All right.
But when you refer people or when you reject them, are the reasons? Do you advance reasons as to why? Do you tell them why they're being referred or they're being rejected? Yeah.
For instance, if I should ask you your place of birth, you could not establish. Who are your parents? You could not establish. Or maybe your local authority where you are from, you could not establish. I could politely ask you, now, since you could not satisfy me in these questions, can you come with your mother, please? Or come with your father or your uncles? Or can you go back to your local authority, get an attestation to prove that you are a citizen of that community? You understand? So these are some of the things we will ask people to come with in the first instance interview. So, but for rejection, if we have a proof, for instance, you are a foreign national belonging to a particular country, you have the ID card of that particular country, and then we realize that you do not naturalize to become a Gambian. Then we have that evidence to show you are not qualified to be issued with the ID. Then you could be rejected.
I actually asked this question because you have some people who've taken to social media accusing the GID of either rejecting, their applications or referring them and not communicating to them, not telling them anything, so that is why I actually brought up this question. Just to clarify.
That's true. That's true.
Okay, just to add up to that, I want to say that there are no clear-cut rules, there are no clear-cut questions that are designed to be asked by our profiling officers when it comes to interviews for the purpose of ID card issuance. It is purely discretional. The ID card approving officers are at liberty to ask questions based on their own mindset or based on their own thinking. Just a way of bringing out the truth, just to substantiate your claims that you are a Gambian. Fast forward, you can see, for example, somebody who claims to be a Gambian, an adult of 18 years and above. The guy, is here in front of me with his birth certificate, and on the birth certificate, I can see the place of birth, is Brikama. Okay. Then when you ask the person, yes, Mr. Nyasi, where were you born? What is your place of birth? And unfortunately, Mr. Nyasi answers, let's say, you know, I am born in SL.
When the birth certificate says
so that is contradicting. You know, your response to the profiling question is contradicting what is on the paper. So now that mislink there, you know, is creating a lot of doubt. You know, it's leaving the approving officer with a lot to decide. Okay, because we expect an adult of that age to be able to, you know, adequately answer that question without, you know, making that kind of, you know, a huge mistake. So if you should, you know, have that kind of response, that opens up a lot of things, thinking in the mind of, you know, the profiling officer. So now you may, you know, ask for further proofs to further substantiate as to whether these documents are, you know, these proofs are genuine or, you know, whatsoever. So these are some of it.
Well, if a person is rejected, I mean, is there an appeal process to higher officers? Can someone appeal the rejection?
Well, rejection is the final result at the primary level. But if you want to appeal, you need to bring sufficient proof to counter the decision of the approving officer to reject the person. Because we do not reject at the first instance. We exhaust all measures to ensure that we have sufficient evidence to show that this particular individual is not eligible to be issued with our national documents. And we make sure we attach all those documents. So if you have anything that is contrary to what we have, you can bring it forward, then we will go through the process again to review.
If, let's say, you are rejected and you feel you are being rejected unjustly, and you have evidence to prove that, you know, you are qualified to acquire whatever national document you're applying for. What is the, you mentioned process. Where do you apply to? I mean, what is the process? How do you go about, you know, appealing?
You need to come back to where you are rejected.
The same process
Yes,
again.
exactly. And then the person who rejected you will not be the one to take up that interview again. It's going to be a different person now, you know, and you will come with your proofs. The interview will be done again to counter whatever decision the approving officer at the first instance take.
It is also alleged that, I mean, you profile people. Is that the case?
Profile how?
Well, it is alleged that, I mean, based on what the person thinks.
Or maybe your appearance.
That's how the person is rejected.
No.
Based on, can I have that again?
Maybe you look at Balde. You think Balde, it's a Jola from Fungi. I reject him.
Okay. Sadly, we are faced with this kind of allegation, you know, times without numbers. But, you know, again, times without numbers. Myself, in the office of the PRO, led by my humble self, have made these clarifications to the public using the various media outlets, you know, many times. That, you know, this is not what we do, and, you know, this is not what, you know, we expect, you know, our officers at all levels to do. Okay, our job is guided by rules, our job is guided by law, our job is guided by principles and ethics. Okay, so but, you know, human beings, you know, we are, you know, we are bound to, you know, behave like that sometimes, because when somebody is aggrieved, sometimes, you know, they just find, you know, any excuse that they could say. You know, because, for example, when you come, you know, to the ID card issuing center, you know, what audacity would, you know, an approving officer have to look at you in your face and say that, you know, you are a Yola from Casamas, you cannot have ID card, or you are a Mandingo from Mali, you cannot have ID card, or, you know, so stuff like that. You know, we found these things to be baseless accusations, because in the first instance, I can remember back in, you know, 2019, there was a case of that nature. Somebody came to my office, a gentleman walked into my office, you know, and he was giving, you know, not exactly that, you know, they said, you know, I am from this so place and that's why I cannot have it. But, you know, he was trying to, you know, bring up certain arguments that suggest to me that he was implying that, you know, officers were kind of ethnically profiling him. But when we dig into this matter, it proves totally wrong, and, you know, it was totally misleading. You know, at the end of the day, the gentleman himself was shocked, and, you know, he had to apologize. You know, he came up, you know, he came out later on to tell me certain things, you know, that led to, you know, those kind of things between him and the officers. Okay, so this issue of, you know, immigration officers, you know, profiling people, how do we call it, ethnic profiling? You know, I think these things are things, you know, that we cannot confirm for now.
If you look at our composition, even at the ID card office, our leadership, the Director General, is very keen on this point. That is why even the approving officers, we have almost all the ethnic groups. You know, we have Fulas doing the interview, Jolas, Mandinkas, you know, name it, Sereres, you know, because he ensured that, you know, it is an inclusive process. Everybody is included. So this is to show that we are not discriminating against anybody. From Banjul up to Basse, all the approving officers, you know, include almost all the tribes, you know, to ensure that, you know, we satisfy everybody. I must stress this here, we will never do such a thing. GID, we are professionals. And, you know, many a times people who went to apply ID card and they are not satisfied, they are the people who will come out with such allegations, but they could not bring any evidence to support their claim.
So in the event my ID card or my passport is lost, what is the process? What do I do to regain it? That is, you know, to have it reprinted, you know, so I can have access to it again. What is the process?
The process is, first and foremost, you need to declare that your ID is lost to the police, you know, because this is very, very important, because once you declare your ID is lost, the police will investigate. They will look into the matter, and then they will provide you with a police report to indicate that, I mean, your ID is lost, and then an affidavit to support from you, the applicant, and then we will also reissue you with an ID card once you effect payment. You know, because we have seen instances where people will lose their ID cards, and these ID cards will be picked up by criminals. You know, go and do something somewhere and drop your ID. And then in instances where investigations are mounted, your ID card is found in that particular place. You know, you could be picked up. And if you do not declare it lost, you know, it will be very difficult to convince the police, you know, that you are not the one who was at the premises. So this is very, very important. So in a nutshell, that is the procedure. You need to get a police report and affidavit to indicate that your ID is lost, and then we will do the necessary.
You mentioned cost. Is it the same amount you pay?
Yes.
Like if you apply?
Yeah, it's the same amount.
Before we focus on the alien card, Mr. Riba, I'd like to clarify this. I don't know whether you know it or not, and I will not be surprised when you tell me I don't know. People are alleging that foreigners are getting our national ID cards here, and these cards have been produced by our own Gambia immigration here. I don't know if you're aware or not.
Okay, we continue to hear claims of this nature, that our documents are falling into wrong hands. This is something that, you know, we hear, you know, here and there. I cannot say that, you know, this is totally false, but at the same time, I cannot say this is, you know, quite true. This is a subject of investigation, and anytime we hear things like this, we try to, you know, strengthen our checks, you know, and, you know, to ensure that if there are loopholes, we try to, you know, cover up all those things. But one thing I want to make very clear is that there is nowhere around the world where document security is 100% guaranteed. The most advanced of nations, you know, will have their documents fall into wrong hands, you know, sometimes here and there. We just have to face it and be quite frank with these things. Okay, if things like that happen, we, you know, if we are walking this direction, we have, you know, other people, you know, criminals, if I may call them, fraudsters, if I may call them, who will be working, you know, against the system. They also have their plans, and they have, you know, collaborators that they will work. Sometimes they beat the system, you know, by getting certain things that will make them, you know, look qualified in the face of, you know, GID approving officers. So, and mind you, document processing, you know, is a whole lot of, you know, cane work. Okay, what comes from the other end, you know, what, you know, we base our checks on comes from somewhere else. So if the law says somebody must have X, Y, and Z to be qualified in, to obtain an ID or any other relevant document, who will be Mr. Jallo, having seen all those things and having satisfied himself with the profiling processes, you know, to reject this gentleman or this lady? So sometimes, yes, we have lapses here and there, based on the way and manner evidences of citizenship are are processed or acquired. So, but this is not to say that we have our documents falling into wrong hands in a scale that is being portrayed in the social media and all that not. Yeah, I think generally the GID, we are doing very well when it comes to restricting our documents to ensure that they fall into the relevant and the lawful hands.
So just quickly, this is just a follow-up to his question. I know we live in an advanced world. Technology is quite advanced these days. I don't know if this is possible. It is still in relation to foreigners acquiring our national documents. Now, I know within the sub-region, almost all other countries are using almost the same, the biometric system. Is it in any way interlinked such that if, for instance, let's say someone from another country, comes here and then wants to acquire our national documents pretending to be Gambian, are you able to detect?
Yes. I think so far, I don't think we've got to that level now.
Okay.
But we are aware of the fact that efforts are underway to make sure that ECOWAS countries adopt the same standard of documentation. For example, when it comes to ID card, I think the one reason that some people call this biometric ID card that we are using currently as ECOWAS ID card is because it is we are complying with the ECOWAS standards set for all ID cards of the ECOWAS member countries to have the features, the security features, the standard, the card quality, and the card validity period and stuff like that. So I think these are standards. There are standards that the ECOWAS countries has set for themselves for all member states to comply when it comes to the life of this document, the quality of this document, the security features of this document, and stuff like that. But that issue of having a central kind of database where member states can verify each other's document, I don't think that has existed so far.
All right, let's drive our attention to alien cards. I understand very soon you will start an exercise on inspection. Yes, on inspection on alien cards. Take us through this. I mean, what should be done? What are you expecting from people that didn't have these documents, or their documents are already expired?
Or maybe first, what is the process of acquiring an alien card if you are, let's say, a foreigner wanting to either reside or not only reside but also work in Gambia? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Thank you. The requirements are for ECOWAS nationals. You should be here for more than 90 days. Because we have this agreement, ECOWAS agreement, that ECOWAS citizens can come and live in the Gambia for a period of 3 months. After that, if you intend to extend your stay, you need to regularize your stay. So we require you to produce your national documents, either your national ID card or your passport, for us to register you and then issue you with the residence permit. So we have different type of documents. We have residence permit for ECOWAS nationals, and that one also we have permit A and B. And then we also have residence permit for non-ECOWAS nationals also who are out of the sub-region, and then we issue them with permit A and B. Permit A is only for residents. If you are issued with permit A, you are not allowed to work or venture in any business activities in the country. It is for students and retired people. So permit B is the permit that we issue to people to allow them to reside, work, or engage in any economic activities. So these are the documents that we issue. So we also have another document that we issue called the non-Gambian ID card. That one is issued to people from our neighboring countries, Senegal, Guinea-Bissau, Ivory Coast, and Sierra Leone. These are documents we issue based on the bilateral agreements that our government has with these countries. So in terms of prices also, they differ. The non-Gambian ID is $750. For the ECOWAS residence permit, it is $1,850 plus the form that is 1,950.
Well, I think Esho, it will be very important for us to do this in the local language
as
for
well,
the
yes.
interest of our local viewers.
People, yes.
It will be very important. We're talking about alien cards, and we know we have most of our local viewers. Most of them are staying in the country, and some of them are with the alien card. I mean, and some want to apply for it, but they don't know how to do it. So it's important for us to clarify these things in the local language. Yes, Mr. Jala.
Okay. Comme wone yewtude do kon rek ko affaire kaydiji dim pour hobbe be anduda wana gabe jeya. Si tawi onti ari ko leydi a foti arde immigration adora ID card maw wala passport maw. Sa ari men jonnama kaydi ndin pour wawa wonde ko leydi haray on tigi wonay do gollay haray laamu ngon kadi tampintama heɓata probléme hakkunde ma e immigration o kaydi noon no inne residence permit fewdo ɗo meɗen jonnirde kaydi ndin ha pari himɓe amen ɓen kadi noko yaasi ko nder saare heɓe lando hoɓɓe ɓen o kaydi kala mo anduɗa hiɗa e nder ndi leydi hiɗa gollude a foti yoɓude o kaydi sa yoɓani haray a bonni loi te ɗum kadi noon immigration si nanguima ɓe tardinte eyyi golle ma den tarday haajuma tarday ha pari on tigi kadi dal a tampay so min yiɗa tampinde hay goto ko ɗum waɗi meɗen ari hande ga pour yewtudugol e maw pour hollugol on min fuɗɗike golle ɗen meɗen heeɓi branches ji ɗin foof ko nder leydi gila Banjul ha Basse meɗen heeɓi so on ari kani fin meɗen ton so on yeehi Bundung meɗen ton Brusubi meɗen ton Gunjur kadi min fuɗɗike hande meɗen Brikama meɗen Farafeñe Jara Soma Basse Janjambure ha fatoto meɗen ton so joni affaire on joni dal min udditi office ji ɓuyɗa pour wallugol himɓe ɓen so meɗen tori himɓe ɓen fof musidɓe amen ɓen surtout min yiɗa hay goto tampina o kala mo anduɗa hiɗa ɗo hiɗa golluɗe hiɗa heɓa seeɗa yon wakkilo yalten yoɓen because minen min yiyata ɗo sa meɗen joodi lewru wo lewru meɗen yoɓude eyyi ko anduɗa ko pour nafa leydi ndin e pour nafa amen minen fof so meɗen tori on kala mo anduɗa hiɗa ɗo please wakkilo yalta yoɓoya kayɗiji maɗi
eyyi no laaɓi poy Mr Diba hani sa en mo laftale ga sénéyandi ɗon molu melɓen jibe kan ñing alien kaɗoñi ni lafta sotola sartol miliyalon ko wolle ɓe laarin akkunna
yo abarka bake balde folo mbe mi yitande la wala ñente ko luwale ya yitande ko momoronde mbetata ñim banko kan e mari ñanta ka kayto la soto kayto min seneyata ni mu Gambia di ngolati ñanta ka kayto la soto mi ya yitande ko tam Gambia di ngolati ka fole ID card luwale ya landa manche ko men ko ni mari lafta la le ñanta kake ni yake e luwale buña ni make e luwale batar yo mol men fana yalan ko manke Gambia di ngolati luwale ay tande ko men ko momoron di manke Gambia di ngoto bari betar la sabare banko ka yanda ka kayto la soto kayto min bay tan la ko men ko itam bestire e be sabare nyam banko la kan andu e mo banko kar le di ngote andu e dun ta janye wata kar nala o be mo kulata mu yalan ko akumata nimmi yake luway men fo yewole ke ni make luway men fo balanta walla adu kuluro la be o kunnato la yo sañi nin nata nan mol nyanta ka nyin kayto ni soto nyaadi le ela ñin karo mon ID card fo Alliance card yo Alliance card mol yenta kan Alliance card so ñamen Alliance card ñen yalo niaji be di alien community in this country is diverse and mu manke category kilente yo dol be je mu yalo ko mu ECOWAS national slat wala mu banko dingol to mun yalo ko bota ECOWAS tundol la bota banko le to na Africa tiliji banko le kan mu yalo ko le ka folo ka mu ECOWAS banko dingol man mol min bota banko le kan o banko dingol wole buña basoro mu yalon ko wala mu ECOWAS status treatment yo e bajala ko wol ni be dunna jang kari saba e mari luwaye so wala Gambia luwaye so wala kari saba e se dunno wala mtel tan konondo e se dunno jane tara sabatri jang e man sula ka pameto jo ban ni wo kari saba nyem banta andu e manta morno e be continuer la ka sabati jang nyanta kata immigration bunda men sutiyatela yeta yela kayto kuma ka je wala mu residence permit naata mari be do ko wala yanda ka pameto to soto mu yalon ko o pameto nye wala symbole la pour ye do ko pour se sabatino banko kan jang pour se do ko fanan keno jang pa naata no e ma o mu pamet kelenate pamet do fanan be je mu yalon ko ka wodi molel la mi yalon ko e mari be sabat la banko kan janne bari tetar la do ko la jama jama ko wodi mol la mu yalan ko karamto dinnengolu waranto no mol mi yan ko do ko kala foy pension ta retirees wala mu permit 8 permit B wala ka di mol la mu yalan ko be do ko be sabat la banko bari be do ko kala yo sañing e mari ibe mu kaytlel sambala pour ka nyim permitol nyen soto wala mo ila passeport e bota banko men kan o passeport waranto e bota banko men kan wala ID card ni o kaytol nyen soto e futata to immigration bundato mi yalan ko jela sutiyate la then you pay a prescribed fee ye ko do jo loi ay tan men na ko men ko ay kayto nyen ta ka kuma ka menna then e be fo mo nyen di la ne fo mo nyen fil fa parera e ba submit la na do kulal biaje ni a submit foka pare den wol be ko man la interview la sina sa kiskisi e kaytol min sambana kaytol nyen sahata fo man saha e la fa mare fa ngoyno a jarta pour ka kayto nyen di la ye sabata jam fo ab man jar ko kayto bari mo men fanam be kala fa sabata jam ndo fanam be sabata dano jam ya ko dol be je ila sabato jang ay nafa la bar dol be je ila sabato jang ay batandile lu wala jibero so modum fan hanila ko dagon e be luwa mi be luntan min jale kala fala ke luntan sahara wote ay ke modum yalla ko ina la sabato nyoka ba kay rolo wulula ina la sabato nyoka ba yuru wala wulula bar mi yalla ko ina la sabato nyoka be na problem won man torol felana an ko dati fa
mo moto nyalti Mr Diallo mi rutete bawo seeda rek yewten ko hondetuma fuɗɗoto ɗon ndaarude fiiɗi kaydiji ɓe annduɗa ɓe jogaaki ɗi
min fuɗɗike sa fewndo
on fuɗɗike
min fuɗɗike last week te min continue ha hitande nden huuwa ko min faala ko rek kala wonowo e nder ndi leydi min faala on tigi heɓa kaydi ayi sa heeɓi kaydi laamu ngun anda e fiima immigration men anda e fiima min anda e honto immorɗa ɗum walla e men pour dandugol leydi ndin kala wonowo ga min fotima andude kam woni hombo honto immorɗa o kaydi kadi no heeɓi nafa e hobbe ɓen because sa heeɓi kaydi ndin sa daari loi amen on pour wawa wadde naturalise ma heɓa o kaydi residence permit on sa heeɓi ha
ko ɗum woni alliance on
eyyi ko timmi 15 sa heeɓi ɗum hiɗa wawi wadde naturalise hoore lawol wona Gambian citizen ɗum kadi ko nafa mum sa heeɓi o kaydi kadi hiɗa wawi wadde any financial transaction natingol mbudi ko banque yaltingol mbudi ɗum fof no wawma wallude sa yeehi ko l'hôpital kadi ko Gambian ɓe yoɓata kon an kadi ko ɗum yoɓata hay so ɗum fof no woodi nafa so kaydi on wata min yi tun ko tampingol on tigi ala because sa daari menen leydi amen ndin joni komin hutorto kon fof ko heewi ko taxe iwata so kala gollowo ga no heɓude on tigi foti yoɓude taxe o kaydi kadi ko taxe minen immigration kadi ko ɗum waɗi meɗen walla laamu ngu pour waɗugol en so kala wondo ga on tigi yoɓay a yiyay min heɓa kalis yonuɗo pour wawde gollude leydi ndi so ko ɗum woni to
ok eso mamandi SDY femmaje me yalon ko it's very important iko nata ECOWAS dingole mum na ɗum ta banko kan jang in 3 months 90 days ase sabatino jang bare albalo nako ñaadide ala 3 months bandale
yo
it's an important question
ni be dunna banko ka iman tanem funtangol fo inata ne dala nata ne silo la mu yalan ko wala mu silo tinyanta ka dunna men ibe immigration do ko lal taraje ni futaraje wol ibe la kaytol jibera ni be dunna e la kayto tampelal kaytande ko ñel longol e dunta banko so ela dungo banko kan a control be commence la wolongol ni nata nan pour kana ñim pamito ñine ni futata je ni o tampo ñin jibe aje ko ko ite dunta ñin karo til nagam nel e calculate e balona la ko whether the 90 days till town kononto ñin sendile fo ma sende so the records are generated from that ngawo records also from the transactions that minketa bodalto so bar ni mari keta monet mu yalan ko i man dun ne silola e dun tan funtangol la kana dum banko kan e baaje la ko man ko ete ba kolya ko wala sotola when it comes to things like that and wo fanam fango kayti nyino be te la jana o mun luwati nyalade because under the law wala mun nyento ko man ko dun ta banko wala kan without pass or permit which is an immigration offense so abe wala wala nyam
jama fanan ka jala kamul official kamul arrest sometimes martial konote ne ko sab
yo comme ngam foyta abe mo
secondingol fulo
okay abonda la comme ko fana abe be sujiri nyi do ko nyenne la ni ajibe sa mbeta mbomin do in 2022 this 2022 we are almost in the 6th month of the year amunda sango sai fotata sango talante morol yo sanyi mbete momento ni ko hanbi molbe mbango kam yalla ko ibe siri ibe mbang sabatrin janna ibe do ko wala jaay be mu nafan kan jang kabirin last year woyna kabirin safa dal ka bo January woyna fo be bila kar woro hanbi mari nyel man na kay la kayto nyem fali yalla ngo ko la mu yalla ko mu tarde wala yo so ni sango bantate kaminke nga chance di molla nka wato di molla ka jibe mol me yalla ko be volontaire la kana fango kana la kaytol falen kana la kaytol jo ban nata ta fokar saba karnane sometimes fango ko men disi abe nyamenten afela fotar fokar woro hani bi manta inspection wala pour kata jibe so ntolla fanko wala na do ko wala mo isa mandate to enforce the immigration regulations on alien registration
so nyin kaytol e ka falin every 6 months bang
no every year once okay. Sango sang nin sang tata fafuta December karotil tan sabanen kileng kayto okayte be mobulu okayto banda ko ngam pametol men dem wala pameto nyina lifespan mo 1 year late okay. So it doesn't matter in which month yes kayto nyin soto sango kono karjumalla bare December 31st doron o do kayto nyin bebe expire so that means people are obliged to come forward and renew their documents for the current year. So ibaje la ko nin tata fo karkelem karfula karsaba fo nane fo lulu sani wato sita la pour kawta kata inspection la ka jiwi ko so ñu fana mo kuler mu yalan ko amanta sujiri ñen don ko pour ko na fulo ñen ka dun man sakunda la ranke so kono bar fana ba sujiri ko la mu yalan ko they matter on security. So these are because momo be bango kan the authorities in this country should account for you yenta ka lon la karbe in bango la kan mo kar na mar boten tanga kar so kay tol min ka o itandi o mo obligation la pour mo yo soto then it is not a mistake pour ka wo loi se fal dunde so mol min yalon ko bade bu ngolo ane mo ko tangol mi an ko ni mante bulo mota yesa bana yena ko gana during this inspection no wal se fal ka nyoje no le then is a convince eta pour eta yele kay tol ni jo
so manken na westi fawde bari modol bije ni man funti kan
bari sante min bije alhamdulillah on contenta ba ke pour ka report that this year a lot of people are coming up voluntarily.
I wanted to ask
that. Yes, a lot of people are coming up, voluntarily to how do I say it, to acquire these documents. Maybe perhaps we will attribute this thing, to the sensitization that we are making, and maybe the people's own awareness of the needs for them to acquire these documents, because for the fact that these things are not just a mean of accruing revenue for the government, but it has also some personal security benefits, because at one point in time we have seen on social media somebody, a West African lady who died and was lying in the mortuary, and for days nobody could identify who is this. We don't know who the family members are and so forth. But if that lady was in possession of at least one identification document, it would have been easier for the hospital authorities to find out who are the family members or who are the friends.
But
so I think these are important.
Yes. Pro Mr. Dibaning Mr. Jalai Jam France and Karung ngeen kanu ni angale kangola. Ngaje ko diamol siata dol be audio bondela WhatsApp dol be safaro kala internet especially on Facebook and in Twitter ko alkamol profile sometimes fana dol ka fele ko ndara kayti la ID card la yande jek imam fem fonye lafta la prale je fana sene yande
okay baraka baake comme ngaf ko man to nyamel rek wo mu kulete mi yalon ko aman soto kato nentol fango jibe na interview dula na composition on comme ngaf nyame na nyaton ko nyim fango ate fango le nyimmira ayake kaje ko momo be approve ndula na mol be dakeji siol be dakeji isaje mota fula ko okay manin ko lebi jang ni nate ka fulol dronde batandi ya understand so na manin kol soto jele na fulol soto je na jolal soto je na surwal soto je akasin kol soto je pour kaje ko dal momo ye fango je nyim kulete mi yalon ko ndol nga bayle anu kulo mi yalon ka man soto joma minul nata interview la ilafta min le mo soto joma wala ka aussi falke you know nyimu kulet mi alon ko ndefon kanung interview leke I'm part of the approving officers kani fingjang before nyimu kulet mi alon ko ndeka kelele buka som fam moje ka jube ka fuko ite munyineti imambo jang ndol buka woke andu naketa fana momola you know ye sede koyo soto isena non tolla office ya fo nyembe lo nyata la jele kaje ko nga ko nyin kele nga bondi ka to nyim banko mbele dentala you know be mu kilinnati bari mimbe je nimbe interview kela nka sujudi ni luwal kaje ko luwa e memfo nga woke bari nite man criteria nyim fulfill ite nata ama me commando fam bundum nga kes soto je molo mi yalon ko nala musolom bari muso nyin atulol mandia yara fan abuke moy bake atata ay muso bula atata interview la abe interview dula ni a nyeninka buka jabiro keno yara fan ate tulo mandia ibuka moy ya ono san so approving officer nata fay ko say muralla sate to alkal kayto na fi so akema nata na office ay mata nyi explain ni ko nyen lafta yem makoy pour nga nyin ko nyen solve ngay mu nekata ko nyen namuso ay atulol mandia hearing problem le soto so but kabri ba interview la approving officer ni magnello so ntetata pour ka o mata ni resolve janinte be parela the story is on what's on Gambia and yalon ya savaje citizenship crisis in GID o manke crisis ti you know o mo fenet mi yalon ko sa solve no you know is a small thing you understand communication gap le bije because ke wonyum fana nyanta muso nyin escort lale I tandi approving officer la mbenyin dandan kam because I nyim problem ole soto you know because nka vulnerable people will fana consider nke mako ila so wole mankeje so kabri ka kal kayto na fe ke wonyin ate fana akamu journalist solte ala foroto so janninte nate be pare la nyobala story nyin already
published.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah,
That's
Mr.
what
Balde.
happens when we have a lot of corner journalists.
ya long membeje
Yes.
mol nyanta mem faham lolo min de ko man ko ndol be lor min kan ino mbe taman katama ne luwa la ne sarrol e momo je do ko la jem bo ku ke kum fe bare mol nyanta min lona wala min de ko man ko jama mol men yalon ko they found themselves on the wrong side of the bargain or they found themselves on the wrong side of the law wala kataka noise balke pro to make sure that just to create a noise pro kamol confuse waranto to make the officers subdue and fold their arms but la faka follow come ko we have passed that level you understand and the responsibility mi alon ko nyimbanko moya wala entrust ndolla ala delicacy ala kuliya tambita wotile ka fo ko ebe wurla le no is in make doron wayatina we fall back and just sit down and watch things like that, just to satisfy, just to make sure that people keep quiet. No, it's not about that. In Ajibe, it is the few people me and many be daring on the truth and many be noise making boys based on falsehood among if they are not among match so science wala fangore but unya kabri nyen claim sol keta some time back comme nga fonu yenyame eso kabri ngaji social media mol ka complain ol fenka at one point modo fon nata na of so ka itande ko men ko ya te refuse le o ka te ka twist and turn le based because of atamu nyenete I just don't want to say that okay but ntol na ramine ka kabri nga ko investigate ngaji be ko mo ka manke tonyat but onya na alfalu kabo director general fawala anata na nyen ko kala sulo to bake kaje ko men ko issues like that, even though these claims were not true, they were not founded, but science ajibembe menkela be plano land la nyame pour ka make sure that more ronding mi an ko be bank wala kan adi bota ethnicity e bota cielaton ni tata nyen dulanto doron isi moje je mu yalon ko isi sondam tan ko soto so sa mota je la ko men ko e fulol damal sinin lanto ning surwal nata eke batandel wayatinna inata make sure that fenkol nye the profiling officers are drawn from all ethnicities in this country. So, and I think so far this is helping us a lot. But the message should be very loud and very clear, that we will do our best to make sure that we uphold the responsibility that is bestowed on us, to make sure that we try as much as possible to save our documents from falling into wrong hands.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on this platform. This is what we expect from you. Molian banko talenga kal bulur kono. So nga expect le femma nyanna tinala ale murukoma. no matter what. So ala barka bake, kontanta bake pour kal invite nanjang alena ka mul danku. Thank you very much, viewers. This is all we have for you in this edition of This Morning. Until we come your way again tomorrow, have a wonderful day.